I smoothed my dress for the 100th time, taking a deep breath before stepping into the lion's den. The chatter from the dining room drifted down the hallway, a cacophony of laughter and clinking glasses that set my nerves on edge. "You can do this, Clara," I whispered to myself, squaring my shoulders. "It's just another family dinner." But who was I kidding? With Kate, my mother-in-law, nothing was ever just anything. Every gathering was an opportunity for her to remind me how I didn't measure up to her lofty standards. As I entered the room, conversations hushed and all eyes turned to me. I plastered on a smile, searching for my husband Daniel's reassuring face in the crowd. "Well, well, look who finally decided to grace us with her presence." Kate's voice cut through the silence, dripping with disdain. "Clara, dear, I was beginning to think you'd gotten lost on your way from the kitchen." I felt my cheeks burn as I took my seat next to Daniel. He squeezed my hand under the table, a silent show of support. "Sorry for the delay," I managed, my voice steadier than I felt. "I wanted to make sure the roast was perfect." Kate's perfectly manicured eyebrow arched. "Oh, and here I thought we'd be having takeout again. How quaint." Before I could respond, Daniel's grandmother Violet chimed in, her voice warm and kind. "I'm sure it's delicious, Clara. You always put so much love into your cooking." I shot her a grateful smile, but Kate wasn't finished. "Speaking of love," she said, turning to address the table at large, "did I tell you all about the charity gala I'm organizing? It's going to be the event of the season." As Kate launched into a detailed description of her plans, I tried to make myself as small as possible. But of course, she couldn't let me off that easily. "Clara," she said suddenly, fixing me with her piercing gaze, "I don't suppose you'd be interested in helping?" "Oh, but I forgot. You're not really comfortable in those circles, are you?" The table fell silent, the tension palpable. I could feel Daniel stiffen beside me, ready to jump to my defense. But something in me snapped. I was tired of being Kate's punching bag. "Actually, Kate," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, "I'd love to help. What did you have in mind?" For a moment, Kate looked taken aback. Then her eyes narrowed. "Well, if you insist, perhaps you could help with the catering." The implication was clear. I wasn't good enough for anything else. But I refused to back down. "I was thinking more along the lines of event planning," I countered. "I did organize several successful fundraisers for my college, after all." Kate's smile turned brittle. "Did you now? How interesting. I had no idea your little community college even had fundraisers." "Mom," Daniel warned, but I placed a hand on his arm. "It's all right, Daniel," I said, not breaking eye contact with Kate. "I'm sure your mother didn't mean to imply that my education was somehow inferior. After all, we can't all attend Ivy League schools, can we?" The room fell silent, the air thick with tension. Kate's face flushed red, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Violet's laughter broke the silence. "Oh, I like you, Clara," she said, her eyes twinkling. "It's about time someone stood up to our Kate." As the conversation slowly resumed around us, I caught Daniel's proud smile. For the first time since I'd married into this family, I felt like I belonged. And I knew this was just the beginning of my journey to find my voice and stand up for myself. Little did I know the real battle was yet to come. The morning after the disastrous family dinner, I woke up determined to prove Kate wrong. I may not have her wealth or connections, but I had something she'd never understand: genuine passion and a strong work ethic. I threw myself into my daily routine with renewed vigor. As I kneaded dough for fresh bread, I couldn't help but smile, remembering Kate's shocked face when I stood up to her. The memory gave me strength, but I knew the battle was far from over. The phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. I wiped my hands on my apron and answered, my heart sinking when I heard Kate's voice. "Clara, darling," she cooed, her tone sickeningly sweet. "I've been thinking about our little chat last night. You seemed so eager to help with the gala. I've decided to give you a chance." I held my breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. "I need you to organize the flower arrangements," Kate continued. "Nothing too extravagant, of course. We wouldn't want to overwhelm you." I bit back a retort. That sounds lovely, Kate. I'd be happy to help. Wonderful, she replied, her voice dripping with false enthusiasm. Oh, and Clara? Do try to keep it within budget. We can't all afford to throw money around like you did with that quaint little wedding of yours. The line went dead before I could respond. I gripped the counter, my knuckles turning white. How dare she bring up our wedding? Daniel and I had saved for years to have the celebration we wanted, without a penny from his family. Determined not to let Kate get to me, I threw myself into research. By the time Daniel came home from work, our dining room table was covered in flower catalogs and sketches. Wow, he said, surveying the chaos. What's all this? I explained Kate's generous offer, watching Daniel's face darken. Clara, you don't have to do this, he said, pulling me into a hug. My mother's just trying to set you up to fail. I pulled back, meeting his eyes. I know, but I'm not going to give her the satisfaction. I'm going to create the most beautiful flower arrangements she's ever seen, and I'm going to do it under budget. Daniel smiled, pride shining in his eyes. That's my girl. How can I help? For the next week, we worked tirelessly. I called in favors from old college friends, negotiated with local florists, and even convinced a nearby botanical garden to lend us some rare specimens. It was exhausting but exhilarating. The day before the gala, I was putting the finishing touches on a centerpiece when the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Violet standing there, a knowing smile on her face. I thought you might need some help, dear, she said, holding up a basket of stunning orchids. These are from my personal greenhouse. I think they'll add just the right touch, don't you? Tears pricked my eyes as I hugged her. Thank you, Violet. You have no idea how much this means to me. As we worked, Violet regaled me with stories of her own clashes with Kate over the years. That woman has always been more concerned with appearances than substance, she said, shaking her head. But you, Clara, you've got both, and that terrifies her. The next morning, Daniel and I arrived at the gala venue early to set up. My heart was pounding as I arranged each centerpiece, second-guessing every decision. When Kate swept in, her eyes widened as she took in the displays. For a moment, I saw a flicker of admiration in her eyes before her mask of indifference slipped back into place. Well, she said, her voice tight, I suppose this will do, though I'm not sure about those orchids. They seem a bit ostentatious, don't you think? I opened my mouth to defend my choices, but Violet's voice rang out behind me. Oh, Kate, she said, her tone deceptively light. Don't you recognize those orchids? They're from my greenhouse. The same ones you've been trying to get your hands on for years. Kate's face flushed, and I saw a crack in her perfect facade. For the first time, I realized that maybe, just maybe, I had more power in this family than I'd ever imagined. As guests began to arrive, praising the floral arrangements, I stood tall, ready to face whatever challenge Kate threw at me next. This was just the beginning, and I was finally blooming. The success of the gala's flower arrangements had given me a newfound confidence, but I knew better than to let my guard down around Kate. As I pulled into Violet's driveway for our weekly tea, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. Violet greeted me with her usual warmth, ushering me into her cozy living room. The air was thick with the scent of freshly baked scones and Earl Grey tea. Clara, dear, Violet said, settling into her favorite armchair. I'm so proud of how you handled the gala. You showed real grace under pressure. I felt a flush of pride. Thank you, Violet. I couldn't have done it without your help. Violet waved her hand dismissively. Nonsense. You did all the hard work. I just provided a few flowers and moral support. As we sipped our tea, Violet's expression grew serious. Clara, there's something I need to tell you. It's about Kate. My stomach clenched. What is it? Violet took a deep breath. Kate wasn't always like this, you know. She used to be different. Kinda. But something happened years ago that changed her. I leaned forward, intrigued. What happened? It was before Daniel was born, Violet began. Kate was engaged to a man from a wealthy family. Everyone thought it was the perfect match. But a week before the wedding, He left her for her best friend. I gasped. That's terrible. Violet nodded. It broke her heart. But more than that, it humiliated her. She became obsessed with appearances, with proving her worth through material things and social status. As Violet's words sank in, I felt a mix of emotions. Pity for the young Kate who had been so hurt, but also anger at the woman she had become. The woman who seemed determined to make my life miserable. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. Violet reached out and took my hand. Because I think you might be the key to helping Kate heal. You remind her of herself before all this happened. Strong, genuine, unafraid to stand up for what you believe in. And that scares her. I shook my head. Violet, I don't think dash. But before I could finish, the front door burst open. Kate stormed in, her face flushed with anger. Mother, she snapped. What do you think you're doing? Violet stood, her voice calm but firm. Kate, we were just having tea. There's no need for dash. No need. Kate interrupted. I saw Clara's car outside. I know you've been conspiring against me. I stood up, my heart racing. Kate, that's not true. We were just talking. Kate's eyes flashed dangerously. Oh, I'm sure you were. Talking about how to undermine me, no doubt. Well, let me tell you something, Clara. You may have impressed a few people with your little flower show, but you'll never truly be part of this family. You'll always be an outsider. Her words stung, but I refused to back down. Kate, I'm sorry for whatever happened in your past, but that doesn't give you the right to treat me this way. I am part of this family, whether you like it or not. For a moment, I saw something flicker in Kate's eyes, pain, maybe even a hint of respect. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by her usual cold disdain. We'll see about that, she said, her voice low and threatening. My birthday party is coming up, and I expect you to be there. Let's see how well you can fit in with the crowd I run with. With that, she turned on her heel and stormed out, leaving Violet and me in stunned silence. Violet squeezed my hand. I'm so sorry, dear. I never meant for this to happen. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. It's okay, Violet. I think it's time I stopped trying to avoid confrontation with Kate. If she wants to see how well I can fit in, I'll show her. I'll show everyone. As I left Violet's house that day, I knew I was walking into a storm. But for the first time, I felt ready to face it head-on. Kate's birthday party would be a battlefield, and I was determined to come out victorious. The days leading up to Kate's birthday party were a whirlwind of anxiety and determination. I was determined to show Kate that I could hold my own in her world, but with each passing day, the task seemed more daunting. One afternoon, as I was sorting through my closet in despair, trying to find something suitable to wear, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Kate standing there, a large white box in her arms. Clara, she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. I thought I'd drop by to make sure you're prepared for the party. We wouldn't want any embarrassing incidents, would we? I forced a smile. How thoughtful of you, Kate. Please come in. She swept past me, placing the box on the coffee table. I took the liberty of selecting an appropriate outfit for you. After all, we can't have you showing up in one of your quaint little dresses. My cheeks burned as she lifted the lid, revealing a sleek, black designer dress that probably cost more than our monthly mortgage payment. It's lovely. I managed, my throat tight, but I couldn't possibly dash. Nonsense, Kate interrupted. Consider it a loan. I expect it returned in pristine condition, of course. As she turned to leave, she paused at the door. Oh, and Clara? Do try to do something with your hair. Perhaps a salon appointment is in order. The door closed behind her, and I sank onto the couch, staring at the dress. It was beautiful, but it wasn't me. Wearing it felt like admitting defeat, like acknowledging that I wasn't good enough as I was. That evening, I confided in Daniel about Kate's gift. You don't have to wear it if you don't want to, he said, pulling me close. My mother has no right to dictate how you dress. I sighed, leaning into his embrace. But if I don't, she'll see it as a sign of disrespect. I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't. Daniel was quiet for a moment. What if we didn't go? I pulled back, shocked. What do you mean? I mean, what if we skipped the party altogether? We could go away for the weekend, just the two of us. Let my mother stew in her own juices for once. The idea was tempting. Oh, so tempting. But as I looked into Daniel's eyes, I knew I couldn't do it. No, I said softly. If we don't go, she wins. She'll think she's scared me off. I have to face this head-on. Daniel nodded, pride shining in his eyes. Then we'll face it together. Whatever you decide to wear, I'll be right by your side. The next morning, I woke up with a plan. I called Violet and asked if I could come over. When I arrived, I explained the situation with Kate's dress. Violet listened intently, then disappeared into her bedroom. She returned holding a garment bag. I think I might have a solution, she said, unzipping the bag to reveal a stunning vintage gown in deep emerald green. It was my mother's, Violet explained. I wore it once to a gala where I met Kate's father. It caused quite a stir back then. As I slipped on the dress, I felt a surge of confidence. It fit perfectly, as if it had been made for me. The rich fabric hugged my curves in all the right places, and the color made my eyes pop. Violet smiled, her eyes misty. You look beautiful, Clara. This dress has a history of making waves. I think it's time for it to do so again. As I left Violet's house, clutching the garment bag, I felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. I knew wearing this dress instead of Kate's would be seen as an act of defiance. But for the first time, I felt ready to stand up to her, to show her that I didn't need her approval to belong. The night of the party loomed before me, a challenge and an opportunity. As I hung the emerald dress in my closet, right next to Kate's black offering, I knew I was at a crossroads. The choice I made would set the tone for my relationship with Kate going forward. Whatever happened, there was no turning back now. The battle lines were drawn, and I was ready to fight. The day of Kate's birthday party arrived with an air of electric anticipation. As I stood in front of the mirror, smoothing down the emerald green vintage dress Violet had given me, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. Daniel appeared behind me, his eyes widening as he took in my appearance. "Clara, you look stunning," he breathed, placing his hands on my shoulders. I met his gaze in the mirror, my stomach a knot of nerves. "Are you sure about this? It's not too much." He shook his head firmly. "It's perfect. You're perfect." As we drove to the lavish country club where Kate was hosting her party, I clutched my purse tightly, the weight of my decision heavy on my shoulders. The black dress Kate had given me was safely tucked away in our closet, unworn and untouched. The valet took our car, and as we approached the entrance, I saw Kate greeting guests, resplendent in a shimmering gold gown. Her smile froze as she caught sight of us, her eyes narrowing as they swept over my dress. "Clara, Daniel," she said, her voice tight. "So glad you could make it." Before I could respond, she turned to the couple behind us, effectively dismissing us. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. As we entered the ballroom, heads turned. I heard whispers, caught glimpses of approving nods and envious glances. For once, I felt like I belonged in this world of glitz and glamour. Violet appeared at my elbow, beaming with pride. "You look radiant, my dear," she said, squeezing my hand. "That dress was made for you." As the evening progressed, I found myself actually enjoying the party. People sought me out, complimenting my dress and engaging me in conversation. For the first time, I felt like I was more than just Daniel's wife or Kate's daughter-in-law. I was Clara, and I was holding my own. But of course, the peace couldn't last. As I was chatting with a group of women, I felt a presence behind me. "Clara." Kate's voice cut through the conversation like a knife. "A word, please." She led me to a quiet corner, her face a mask of barely contained fury. "What do you think you're doing?" she hissed. I straightened my spine, meeting her gaze. "I'm attending your birthday party, Kate, just as you asked." "In that?" She gestured at my dress. "Where's the dress I gave you?" "At home," I replied calmly. "This dress has special meaning. It belonged to Violet's mother." Kate's eyes flashed dangerously. So this is how you repay my generosity? By embarrassing me in front of my friends. I felt a surge of anger. Embarrassing you? How? By looking nice? By fitting in with your crowd? By trying to outshine me at my own party? Kate snapped. Suddenly, everything clicked into place. This wasn't about the dress at all. It was about Kate's fear of being overshadowed, of losing control. Kate, I said softly, I'm not trying to outshine anyone. I'm just trying to be myself. For a moment, I saw something flicker in her eyes. A hint of vulnerability, maybe even understanding. But then it was gone, replaced by her usual cold disdain. Well, she said, her voice dripping with venom, yourself clearly doesn't belong here. Perhaps it's time you left. I felt as if I'd been slapped. Despite everything, a part of me had hoped that tonight might be a turning point in our relationship. But now I realized that hope had been in vain. As Kate turned to walk away, I made a split-second decision. I reached out and grabbed her arm, forcing her to face me. No, I said, my voice steady and clear. I'm not leaving. This is my family too, Kate, whether you like it or not. And it's time you accepted that. Kate's eyes widened in shock, and for a moment we stood there, locked in a silent battle of wills. The entire party seemed to fade away, leaving just the two of us in this pivotal moment. I knew that whatever happened next would change everything. But for the first time since I'd married into this family, I felt ready to face whatever came my way. The old Clara might have backed down, but not anymore. This was my stand, and I was going to see it through to the end. The tension between Kate and me hung in the air like a storm about to break. We stood there, locked in a silent battle of wills, neither of us willing to back down. The chatter of the party faded into the background, and I could hear my heart pounding in my ears. Suddenly, Kate's face transformed into a mask of saccharine sweetness. "Oh, Clara," she said loudly, drawing the attention of nearby guests. "I'm so glad you decided to wear something special for my birthday. It's so quaint, isn't it, everyone?" I felt the heat rise in my cheeks as heads turned our way. Kate continued, her voice dripping with false concern. "I do hope you didn't spend too much on it. I know how tight things must be for you and Daniel." Before I could respond, I felt a hand on my arm. It was Violet, her eyes blazing with a fierce protectiveness I'd never seen before. "Actually, Kate," Violet said, her voice carrying across the now silent room, "this dress is from my personal collection. It's a family heirloom, worth more than you could imagine." Kate's smile faltered for a moment, but she quickly recovered. "Oh, Mother, how generous of you to lend Clara something so precious. I do hope she's careful with it. We wouldn't want any accidents." As if on cue, a waiter carrying a tray of red wine stumbled nearby. I watched in horror as Kate's hand shot out, seemingly to steady him, but instead nudged the tray just enough to send a glass of wine flying directly at me. Time seemed to slow down. I saw the dark liquid arcing through the air, heading straight for my chest. In that split second, I knew I had a choice. I could dodge, saving the dress but likely causing a scene, or I could stand my ground and face whatever came next. I chose to stand. The wine hit me square in the chest, the cold liquid seeping through the delicate fabric. A collective gasp went up from the crowd, and I heard Kate's mock horrified, "Oh, how clumsy! Clara, dear, you must be mortified." But as I looked down at the spreading stain, something inside me snapped. I was done being Kate's punching bag, done trying to fit into a world that didn't want me. I looked up, meeting Kate's triumphant gaze with a steel of my own. "You know what, Kate?" I said, my voice steady and clear. "I'm not mortified at all. This dress has survived far worse than a little wine. Just like I've survived far worse than your petty attempts to humiliate me." Kate's eyes widened in shock, and I pressed on, emboldened by the stunned silence around us. "I may not have your money or your social status, but I have something you seem to have forgotten: integrity. And no amount of designer dresses or fancy parties can replace that." I turned to address the crowd, my heart pounding but my voice strong. "I'm sorry if I've disrupted your evening. That was never my intention. I came here tonight hoping to be accepted, to find a place in this family. But I realize now that I don't need anyone's acceptance but my own. With that, I turned on my heel and walked towards the exit, head held high despite the wine dripping from my dress. I could hear the murmurs of the crowd, the shocked whispers, but I didn't look back. As I reached the door, I felt a hand on my arm. It was Daniel, his eyes shining with pride and love. "Clara," he said softly. "That was incredible. Are you okay?" I took a deep breath, surprised to find that I was. For the first time in years, I felt truly, completely okay. "I am," I said, squeezing his hand. "Let's go home." But as we turned to leave, we heard a commotion behind us. Violet's voice rang out, clear and commanding. "Not so fast, you two. This party isn't over yet. In fact, I think it's just getting interesting." We turned back, and I saw Violet standing in the center of the room, holding something in her hands. The look on her face told me that the real showdown was yet to come. I turned back, my heart pounding, to see Violet standing in the center of the room. In her hands, she held a small, ornate box. The entire party had fallen silent, all eyes fixed on the elderly woman who suddenly seemed to radiate an aura of authority. "Kate," Violet said, her voice ringing clear through the hushed room, "I think it's time we had a little chat about family history." Kate's face paled, and I saw a flicker of fear in her eyes. "Mother, this isn't the time or place dash." "Oh, I think it's exactly the time and place," Violet interrupted, her tone brooking no argument. She turned to address the crowd. "You see, everyone, this dress that Clara is wearing isn't just any old hand-me-down. It's a piece of our family's legacy, one that Kate seems to have forgotten." I stood rooted to the spot, the wine on my dress forgotten as Violet opened the box. She pulled out a yellowed photograph and held it up for all to see. "This," she said, "is a picture of my mother wearing this very dress at her engagement party. And do you know who that young man beside her is?" Violet's eyes locked with Kate's. "It's your grandfather, Kate, the man who built this family's fortune from nothing." A murmur rippled through the crowd. I saw recognition dawn on some faces, confusion on others. Kate stood rigid, her face a mask of barely contained panic. Violet continued, her voice growing stronger. "This dress represents everything our family once stood for: hard work, integrity, and the belief that true worth comes from within, not from designer labels or social status." She turned to me, her eyes softening. "Clara, my dear, when I gave you this dress, I knew you were the right person to carry on its legacy. You embody everything that made our family great, everything that some of us seem to have forgotten." I felt tears prick my eyes as Violet's words sank in. All this time, I'd been trying to fit into Kate's world, when in reality, I'd been upholding the true values of the family all along. Kate, however, wasn't going down without a fight. She stepped forward, her voice shrill. "This is ridiculous. A dusty old dress and a photograph don't change anything. Clara will never truly be one of us." The room fell silent, the tension palpable. I felt Daniel's hand tighten on mine, but before he could speak, I found my voice. "You're right, Kate," I said, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. "I'll never be one of you, and I'm thankful for that." I stepped forward, facing Kate head-on. "Because if being one of you means valuing appearances over substance, or tearing others down to make yourself feel important, then I want no part of it." I turned to address the stunned partygoers. "The truth is, we all have a choice. We can choose to be defined by our possessions and social status, or we can choose to be defined by our character and our actions." My eyes found Violet's, and I saw pride shining in them. Emboldened, I continued, "This dress isn't just a piece of fabric. It's a reminder of where we came from and what truly matters. And no amount of wine can stain that legacy." The room erupted in applause, catching me off guard. I saw nods of approval, heard whispers of admiration. Even some of Kate's closest friends were looking at her with newfound skepticism. Kate stood alone in the center of the room, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Then I remembered all the times she'd tried to break me, to mold me into her idea of what I should be. As the applause died down, Kate made one last desperate attempt. "This changes nothing," she hissed, her eyes wild. "I am still the matriarch of this family. My word is still law." But her words fell flat in the face of the truth that had been revealed. I watched as, one by one, people turned away from her, gravitating instead towards Violet and me. In that moment, standing there in my wine-stained dress, I realized that this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about redefining what this family stood for, about reclaiming a legacy that had been lost. As I met Kate's defeated gaze, I knew that everything had changed. The battle was won, but the war for the soul of this family was just beginning. And I was ready to lead the charge. The days following Kate's birthday party were a whirlwind of change. The family dynamics shifted dramatically, like tectonic plates realigning after an earthquake. I found myself at the center of it all, a position I never expected to be in. Kate retreated into a self-imposed exile, refusing to attend family gatherings or return phone calls. At first, I felt a twinge of guilt, wondering if I'd gone too far. But then I remembered all the years of criticism and belittlement, and I steeled my resolve. One sunny afternoon, about a week after the party, I was tending to my garden when I heard the crunch of gravel on the driveway. I looked up to see Kate's sleek car pulling in. My heart raced as she stepped out, looking uncharacteristically disheveled. "Clara," she said, her voice lacking its usual sharp edge. I think we need to talk." I nodded, gesturing to the porch swing. As we sat down, an uncomfortable silence stretched between us. Finally, Kate spoke. "I've been doing a lot of thinking this past week. About the party, about our family, about you." I held my breath, waiting for the other shoe to drop. "I owe you an apology," Kate said, the words seeming to physically pain her. "I've been unkind to you. More than unkind. I've been cruel." I was stunned. In all the years I'd known Kate, I'd never heard her apologize to anyone. "Why?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Kate sighed, looking out at the garden. "I was threatened by you. Your confidence, your kindness. It reminded me of who I used to be, before I let bitterness and social climbing consume me." She turned to me, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "When I saw you in that dress, looking so beautiful and self-assured, I saw everything I'd lost. And I lashed out. I felt a lump form in my throat. Kate, I never wanted to replace you or outshine you. I just wanted to be accepted for who I am." She nodded, a sad smile on her face. "I know that now, and I'm sorry it took me so long to see it." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of years of misunderstanding and hurt hanging between us. "Where do we go from here?" I asked finally. Kate straightened her shoulders, a hint of her old determination returning. "We start over. If you're willing, I'd like to try to be the mother-in-law you deserve. The one this family needs." I felt a surge of hope, tempered with caution. "I'd like that," I said softly. "But it won't be easy. There's a lot of hurt to overcome." "I know," Kate replied, "but I'm willing to try if you are." As we shook hands, sealing our tentative truce, I heard the sound of another car pulling up. Daniel and Violet stepped out, their faces a mix of surprise and concern when they saw Kate. "Is everything okay?" Daniel asked, rushing to my side. I looked at Kate, then back at my husband and Violet. "Yes," I said, feeling the truth of it in my bones. "I think it will be." Over the next few months, our family began to heal. Kate made a genuine effort to change, attending family dinners without her usual criticisms, and even asking for my input on her charity events. It wasn't always smooth sailing, old habits die hard, but we were making progress. As for me, I found a new confidence in myself. The woman who had once felt like an outsider was now the glue holding the family together. I started a small gardening business, with Violet as my first enthusiastic customer and Kate surprisingly offering to introduce me to her society friends. One evening, as Daniel and I sat on our porch swing, watching the sunset, he turned to me with a smile. "You know," he said, When I married you, I never imagined you'd end up saving my family. I laughed, leaning into his embrace. I never imagined it either, but I wouldn't change a thing. As the last rays of sunlight painted the sky in brilliant hues, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The challenges, the tears, the triumphs. I thought about the dress, now carefully preserved, a symbol of the legacy I was now a part of. I had come into this family feeling like a late bloomer, always a step behind. But now I realized that I had bloomed at exactly the right time, in exactly the right way. And as I looked towards the future, I knew that the best was yet to come.